I love that.
It's the pensive face of, are we live yet? Are we live yet? Are
We
we
are.
live yet?
We're live now. We're
We are
live.
indeed. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody, depending on where you are in the world today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Wealthy Mindset. Woo!
Money, money,
Now,
money.
absolutely. How does the song go? The best things in life are free. I want money. No, but
Yes.
obviously we don't just talk about um, making money. We also talk about the mindset and the holistic approach that it should take in order for us to create wealthy lives for ourselves. Because again, it means different things to different people, right? I think Laura and myself, well, we had a chat on Saturday about this, where we were talking about the fact that you know not everyone wants to be a billionaire or billionairess, right? Not everybody wants to be Kim Kardashian or Kris Jenner. Some people want to be behind the scenes. Some people are very happy with $10,000 or $20,000 a month. That would be wealth for them, and there is
Right.
nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It all depends on what we want to achieve for ourselves. But I thought today's episode could do with us talking about something that, and you will literally get this as a blurb at every single investment seminar you ever go into, where they say you have to have a strong mindset in order to invest for yourself. If you're not using a wealth manager, please note that markets are volatile, etc., etc. And they give you this whole long spiel, right? And I remember when I first started working in investments, as in, because I used to work in private investment for high net worth individuals. And then I started working in helping people to actually do their own investing. And we worked with the stock market, we worked with the currency markets, we worked with binary trading. And I remember that all the staff had to have dummy accounts so that we could trade ourselves and see what our clients would be going through. And I kid you not, Laura, I was bottom of the class every single week, week in, week out. My funds would be tapped out within 24 hours, 48 hours max, and that would be it. I'd be done. And I went to my boss and I said, what is going on? Because I feel like I'm not stupid. Like I'm not trying to say that I'm a highly super intelligent person, but I definitely don't think I'm stupid. Why am I always, you know, but back of the pack? It doesn't make any sense. And he looks at me, he goes, because you're too emotional.
Mm,
Because instead of following the plan and taking the emotionality out of it, you either panic or you get greedy. I see it in your trades every single time. Now, fair enough, I was mid 20s, so, mind all over the place, hormones doing God knows what,
mm.
and just not treating it seriously. And I definitely don't have a mathematician's brain by any stretch of the imagination. But when he then gave me a formula, and there's that word again, right? Because we always talk about the formula of J3 equals E, but everything in life really can be broken
Right.
down into a formula. He gives me this formula and he goes, follow this to the T, but pretend that you're trading for someone else, not for you.
Mm,
And I went, huh? He goes, trust me on this. Pretend you're trading for me and not for yourself.
right.
That week, I moved to the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
The following week, I moved not quite to the top, but top three. And I went back to him and I went, okay, you're gonna have to break this down for me because I really need to understand mentally, what happened here. And he said,
Yes.
Stefan, when it was trading for yourself, your fear of success came in. Even though it's a dummy account. He's like, I
Right.
could see it happening. Your fear of success comes in and you self-sabotage. The moment you started pretending that you were trading for someone else was the moment you became protective over the trades. You
Mm,
made smart choices. You really stopped to think about what you should be doing. Because, and I could see this in terms of where you placed your profit take margins and your stop losses, which I'll explain in a second what those terms mean. for those who are new to the world. He goes, compared to where you were before, your stop losses were either like just ridiculously low, as in, 2 cents off the trajectory and you're out, you're out, you're out. You're not doing this. But your take profits would be these incredibly high margins. He said, but when you're trading for someone else, you took the fear out. So you allowed a little bit more of a gap on the other side. But you also took the greed out because now you wanted to make sure that you were earning consistently for your client as opposed to trying to make it big. Now, I share all of this with our community because that exact mental state can oftentimes be what affects us in terms of our own investments that we make in everything in life, whether it's starting a new business, whether it's where we put our time and our energy, whether it's how we do our actual physical monetarily investments, right? Those emotions come into play where it's either, oh, I don't want to lose out, or oh, I'm scared of success, and then I self-sabotage. Whereas if we treat, oh, actually, here's another little story, and then I promise I will yield the floor to you, Laura, because I want to hear your
Oh,
thoughts.
no. I love this. Go ahead.
But I remember before that, I was a lot younger. I was about 20, 21. And I got a job working for a small wellness company. And it depended what my boss wanted that day. So when I walked in the morning, my technical job was I was supposed to be personal assistant, but it was whatever they wanted me to do. It was just, you do this. So I'd walk in one day and it'd be, today, your marketing manager. Please go and sort out the following deals for us with the newspapers and magazines and make sure the ads are up properly. Or it would be, we need to do outreach to all of our existing clientele and inform them of X, Y, Z. I learned such a lot in such a short space of time. And whilst the job was incredibly stressful, and I kid you not, I think I worked for them 4 times in the space of 5 years. The bookkeeper and accountant in the office said, I just don't take you off payroll now when you resign, because I just freeze it, because I'm sure you're going to be back in 3 to 6 months. She's like, you're going to be back. And the reason I would always go back was, again, well, I'd leave because I'd get too stressed out, but I would go back because I realized how much I was learning. And the one day I asked for a meeting with my boss, and I said to him, I really want to one day be wealthy, but I can't quite figure out how you do it, because you've created massive wealth for yourself and you lead a very well-balanced life. You're not overly stressed out. You're actually, really pushing yourself forward in terms of your personal development, et cetera, et cetera. And I really looked up to him and I thought, this is someone who I'd like to emulate. And he goes, Stefan, it's interesting. Business is the simplest thing on the planet. It's a very simple formula. He goes, you do A plus B followed by C, and you will get the required outcome every single time. It's a scientific formula. So I said, well, that can't be right, because why do so many businesses fail? He says, because people make it complicated.
Yeah.
People bring their emotionality into it. Yeah. And their decisions are therefore no longer based on logic and principles as to how business and the universe work. And by the way, he actually said that, how business and the universe work. Yeah. And I want to stress that, because we so often talk about these universal principles. They apply to business too. They are immutable. We cannot get away from them. And he was saying, the moment we do that and we rather shift into our own emotions as to how we want things to be, that's when business or investments no longer work the way they should. Now I'm very keen to hear your take on that, because I know you've been a serial entrepreneur yourself. So very keen to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, that for a large part of my life, I have lived within a formula. And
right.
So, it makes me think about the very famous, now who has passed and very beautiful spirit, Bob Proctor. He
Mm.
was well known for many reasons, but the compassion and the heart, but the success. And he did not have a lot of education, was in poverty, and started cleaning carpets and built this amazing business off of this, and then became a spiritual guide for millions around the world. And I remember him talking about many aspects of business, because he was a businessman,
Yeah.
worked millions upon millions. But if you met him or read a book or listened to a talk, it was his spirit that
Yeah.
was wealth. It was his
Yes.
mindset that was wealth. And I wrote this down when you were talking, because this is so true. The frequency of emotion is in opposition of the frequency of wealth.
Hmm.
When I'm talking about this end of it, the contrasting end, because people will say, well, what is this law of attraction? What do you mean take the emotion out of it? But again, we're always going to come back to, and the reason I'm bringing up Bob Proctor is because, this is full transparency. He used to say, I don't know how electricity works. I don't care how electricity works, but we have enough electricity in our body that if we could tune into it, we could actually light a small town. That
Yes.
is the power of the energy that every human being possesses. Now, there's lots of conversations here, but we want to stay around this wealthy mindset. Just because you don't understand a formula doesn't mean you should not apply it to your life and give it the opportunity to show you that not everything you are going to understand and master. I know a lot about cars. I love cars, but I really do not know the mechanism underneath all the engineering of it. I know that I like to get in, I like a stick shift, and I like to go fast. And that's all that matters to me. So now I want you to think about a wealthy mindset. If someone comes to you and they tell you, please follow these 3 steps or 7 steps, and you will become a wealthy individual. And the moment you have resistance, i.e., emotional resistance, this is
Hmm.
where a wealthy mindset is not going to serve you, because you're not tapping into the wealthy mindset. So there's a difference between someone that comes in and says, do as I say because I've done it and I am successful at it. And then you coming in and saying, well, I don't understand it. That doesn't make any sense to me. If I do what you, and all this emotion gets into it. So I'm going to stretch this out and say for everyone, when you find a person that has been successful and lives a balanced life, and tells you, offers you, gifts you the knowledge, whether you sign up for a course, you hop onto a free podcast, doesn't matter. Listen what they're telling you. I'm so sorry. So
No
sorry
problem.
that went off. Um, Listen to what they're telling you. Follow this formula, because the frequency of money is very different than the frequency of emotions. I am
Yeah.
so sorry, you guys.
It's okay.
I'm so
It's
sorry.
okay.
This is real time. I'm on a podcast, brother. So sorry. I'm so sorry. My brother's leaving for Europe this morning, and he must need something, and he forgot. I told him so. Anyways, real time, people. But there's a difference between emotional currency and financial currency. And when you allow yourself to understand, and that story that you just shared was so beautiful, when the emotionality, the charge of emotion is in it, it isn't going to attract the same. And you have this beautiful example of when I took my emotions out of it and I had compassion and accountability, i.e.,
Hmm.
responsibility for someone else's wealth, it shifted. So, in that contrast, is one of the laws of attraction for you to start to adhere to. What was it that when I was accountable for my own wealth, I couldn't attract it? But when the responsibility of someone else's wealth came in, I was able to start gaining some mastery. And therein lies some of the work that we need to do to create wealth for ourselves. This is because our mindset gets distorted with the emotion. Either I deserve it or I think I do, but somewhere underneath it, I don't. So I may want fame and fortune and luxury and riches, but deep down, the root is I don't deserve it. I've never had
Mm-hmm.
it. Who am I
Mm-hmm.
to have it? How do I even go about doing this? And all of that self talk, that self doubt begins. Where sometimes when we can remove the emotionality and look at it as a formula, follow the steps, attract the wealth. But I'm also going to add this in, a lot of reasoning behind why the majority does not attract wealth is because we have not done the work to recalibrate the algorithms of deserving. So
Yes.
it's we can't attract wealth when deep down we don't feel we deserve it. And that means many things for many people.
So I was kind of giggling to myself as you started talking about the whole car analogy, and I just don't care how it works. It gets me from A to B, and it does what it says on the tin. Great. And coming to what you were saying towards the end as well, I can't help but remember pretty much every single martial arts movie that you've ever seen out there where, this guy goes for training and he asks the master or teacher or sifu or whatever it is, but why do I have to do it like this? And why that? And why that? And it's always, Grasshopper, stop asking so many questions and just do it. Just do what I tell you to do and you'll be fine, right? And this does seem to be a thing, because I actually spoke to an Asian guru about this, and he said it is a cultural difference. In the East, you go to a master and you pour yourself out. You are an empty vessel by the time you get there, and your job is just literally to do whatever your master tells you to do. And halfway through or towards the end of the training, you start to realize all these little shifts that have happened in your life, and suddenly it clicks and you're like, oh, I get it. Now, I bring that up because it's the same thing with creating wealth. There are so many books out there on how to start a business, how to invest, how to grow your wealth, how to do property investments, right? There's all these different stories and books and courses and free information out there. And yes, what happens more often than not is, yes, but will this work for me? Is it going to do what it says? Is it going to? And actually, I said to one of my clients last week, we were on a sales call, and he asked me, he goes, the course that you're trying to sell me, does it actually work? Because I've bought so many courses in the past and they just never worked. And I said, well, sir, not to be difficult about it, but did the courses actually not work?
Mhm.
Or did you just not follow the steps for long enough until you
Yeah.
started to see progress? And sure, there's underlying mental and emotional dynamics that affect that. It could be that the work and the course that he was trying to do just didn't align with his soul for whatever reason, and that's why he just wasn't able to get into it. But again, had he just followed the formula, he would have seen that it starts to work. And then that little bit of resistance that we all have against creating a better world, better life for ourselves. And we all do have it in some way, shape, or form, to greater degrees and lesser degrees, yes, but it's always going to be there, right? That resistance comes in and goes, are you sure that this is something you can do? Is this something that you are able to create? But again, if you just keep following the steps,
Right.
eventually, as little successes start to come up, that resistance gets less and less and less because you start to feel deserving. Case in point, There's a
Yes.
free course that I did. It was actually a book, because the course costs quite a bit of money, but this gentleman provides the book for free online. And I think I've mentioned him before, Dan Pena.
Yes.
But it's so interesting that when I started doing the steps, and I literally went, okay, I'm just going to do the steps. And by the way, to anybody who's listening, the book is called Your First 100 Million. If you just Google it, you'll be able to find a free copy somewhere. And he literally says, I don't need to make money off the book. I'm wealthy enough.
Right.
Download it. Wherever you can find it, download it.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, I'm just literally going to follow the steps. I'm just gonna put my head down. I'm gonna remove the emotion out of it, and I'm just going to do what he says. Laura, when I did that, within 10 days, the sheer level of success I'd had, exactly how he said it would unfold if I just did the steps, was insane. Incredible, in fact.
Wow.
The beautiful thing was that at the end of 2 weeks, I stopped and I went, tools down. You realize that if you do this, this is the lifestyle you're going to be leading. Is this what you want? And I had to ask myself that question because things were moving fast. I'm talking very fast.
And you and I do talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about how our mind or the desire or the dream or even the goal is sped up, but then the physical or the emotional, mental, spiritual lag time is in between. And if we don't, and this is what is so beautiful about the Shift and Co. and the courses that we're building and what we're offering, it is this balance, right, of knowing what to do, but getting the whole person prepared for it. Because think about that moment when your mindset clicked into whoa, and you had coaches like you and I on the financial side, on the emotional wellness side, where you could get the mind, body, and consciousness in alignment to keep that momentum of wealth building, but also bring the confidence and the value and I deserve this up to speed. This is why and speaking now behavioral science, why there's 1,001 emails that come in of buy this, do this funnel, this, course, this, money making idea, and why the masses cannot follow through because the mind is not prepared. The physicality is not prepared. The energy of wealth is a high frequency energy, good and bad. All right. We have lots of people that have great wealth and do very destructive things with it, but it holds a frequency because the mass population looks at money as power. So the energy of power goes with money, right? Which is why leadership does a lot of damage with money and they use it to wield their power. But why there's also people who do amazingly beautiful, compassionate things with money also. But if all of a sudden I won the lotto, but my values are askew, my home is in disarray, I'm a disheveled entity, I'm fighting with my spouse, my kids are a mess, I can't hold down a job, and then I collect wealth, what do you think is going to happen to my wealth? It's going to lock into the frequency of where I am, which is what? 98.87% of people who win the lottery end up being broke within 10 years of winning vast amounts of money. They are not in alignment with the frequency of the good power that money can buy. So they don't know how to invest it correctly. They give it away. And may I add, look at the stories and the documentaries on the super elite athletes who end up, and entertainers who end up losing it all because they were not there. So like, I believe MC Hammer for some reason comes to mind, or an Anna Nicole Smith back in the day. These people come in to fame, glory, and fortune and burn out with zero and sometimes losing their life. Whitney Houston, look at this. This is a great example of money does not equal enlightenment. It does not equal empowerment. It is a tool that is to be used for the correct alignment. But unless you are there yourself, you will lose it and lose it fast.
So you've actually reminded me of a beautiful recalibration around, or two beautiful recalibrations around money that I've heard before as mental exercises we can do. Because you're so right. The collective consciousness, and I'd say probably 70-75% of the population, does have this association that money equals power, right? And because of that connotation, we know the saying money corrupts, or power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So automatically we associate money with power. Power corrupts, therefore money corrupts as well, therefore money bad.
Right.
And we treat it as such. Okay. So literally it comes in and we try to get rid of it. We buy nice things, we, treat ourselves, treat our friends, treat our family, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But there were two things that I've heard in my life that really started to help me redefine my own relationship with money. Because as we've said before, and you brought it up again now, money is just a tool. Okay? It is neither good nor evil. It is just a tool. Therefore, it responds to our perception of it. It
Very much.
takes on that perception. So the first thing I heard, which was on an audio tape, that actually that same boss of mine who said business is it's just a formula. And he lent me this course that he purchased from Dr. Oh, I've gone blank. Dr. Demartini. There we go. Dr. Demartini. And this whole course was on wealth and attracting wealth in. And he says, let's take a moment to think about what money is, what money actually is. And he goes, paper money doesn't actually exist. It's really just an idea. It's a thought form. Because if you look at a dollar bill, it says a promise to pay the bearer of this bill $1. So a dollar bill is not a dollar. It's a promise to pay you $1, right? It's just an idea.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's a conscious, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a paradigm that we've created. He says, but now in the day and age we live in, where we're sending money around the globe, or even just in your own town, when you send money from one bank to another, there's no one physically taking your money
Right.
and casting it off to another bank to put it in that person's account, right?
Right.
It gets changed into digital format and it gets sent through fiber optic cables. He goes, now what do fiber optic cables carry? Light.
Right.
He's like, and what do we associate light with? Love.
Yeah.
He says, so if you start to think about money as a conscious construct that is based in light and love, it's easier for you to A, respect it, and B, use it for its actual intended purpose, which is fair exchange.
And if I may say, this is the beauty that we do see when people have wealth, it just overflows. Because
Yes.
once you have 2 or 5 houses, once you have a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce, or whatever your choice of luxury is, once you have and then fill in that list, now what? But it comes back down to, who am I with it? Who am I without it? And the more we can align ourselves with who we are without it, this is where the alchemy, the magic of attracting it becomes more powerful. Because if I feel less confident about myself now, but I tell myself I would be more confident with money, this is where the rub is. Even though I may be able to go and buy a look, right, and style myself a certain way, you can only carry that outside visual so far. when you have to shake someone's hand, when you have to actually engage in conversation, when you have to bring value into an environment, you cannot disguise it through wealth. You can use it and you can create trickery around it for only so long. And there's lots of examples of this in the world. But then it comes down to actually brain work, talent work, creative
Yes.
work, energy work. This is why, again, the masses, we do not collectively create the attraction of great wealth. We are not aligned with the frequency of the abundance of it, because if we attracted it, all hell would break loose for most of us, which is why we have to have moments where we tap in and we're like, how did I handle that? How does that make me feel? This is where awareness to come. See, this is the beautiful challenge, and why I just love the Shift and Co, because we're going to bring awareness to the reasonings of many different topics, and we can speak on these topics ourselves, because we've had movements and moments where, wow, I've been without, whoa, I've had, oh, kind of in between, what does this feel like, and then wanting to up those levels. But I again, I'm going to go back to this. We may not understand how the laws of attraction and manifestation work, but I can tell you that unless you align with absolute authentic clarity of who you are in any given moment, money will only exacerbate the very worst and the very best of who you are. And that's a given. If you are a compassionate, caring, giving person now, money will only magnify that. But if you are an insecure, unstable, off balance, questioning my value, my wealth, and you pull money in, it will only exacerbate those issues. This is why, if you want to align yourself with attracting wealth, become a wealthy individual emotionally, mentally, consciously, spiritually, universally. Align with the frequencies of what you want to attract. If you are not attracting the abundance the way you feel you should, check in with what you really feel about yourself. And this will begin, i.e., back to your original example, when you were trying to pull in the wealth for self, it was all askew. When you had
Mhm.
accountability and compassion to the responsibility of creating wealth for a client, look at how that shifted. You were able to take out the alignment of the issues that you haven't dealt with yet, and speed up right into, I am now an accountable financial advisor for this client. Therefore, I will handle this client with kid gloves. But when it came to your own, all the other stuff got mixed in that
Yes.
environment. Clear out your environment and money will flow.
So I have another experience to share, which, because as you were saying all of this, it suddenly struck me exactly what's happened in my life over the last 10 months or so. Yeah, 10 months. Gosh, 10 months. Because all of last year, up until around October, beginning of November, I was just kind of going through the motions. And I think I've mentioned this to you. I don't think I've mentioned on this podcast, but for 2 years over the pandemic, actually, yeah, for 2 years over the pandemic, I was happy earning $350 a month. It covered my rent, it covered my food, and it covered a little bit of going out money. And I didn't want any more than that. I wanted to live very frugally, and I wanted to spend a lot more time focusing inward. Okay. And I did that, and it was a beautiful journey, and it was great, and it was very necessary as well. What's interesting is throughout the 2 years, I'd often say out loud to friends and myself and all the rest of it that I really do want to be financially wealthy. And people would say, well, why? And I'd be like, well, because I want to be able to treat my friends. I've just always been that kind of person. I'm the kind of person who, you know, And I've always had this idea in my head that I could be sitting at a barbecue on a Sunday and going, hey, what's everybody doing for the long weekend next weekend? Oh, nothing? Cool. Does everybody have a passport? Great. We're going to Zanzibar for the weekend,
Yeah.
right? And don't worry about it. I'll organize the flights, the accommodation, everything. You just have to pitch up outside your door with your suitcase and your passport. That's it. And we'll pick you up and off we go. And I've always wanted to be that person.
I'm ready.
Same here. I'm ready for it. I'm actually really ready for it. But it's interesting that I woke up one day and I've shared this with you, and I went, right, I'm now ready to earn more. And within my first week on my new job, I'd made the same amount that I would have made over 3 months under normal circumstances. Within a month, I had literally 10x what I was making, which felt really, really good. And I said to myself, I'm going to just enjoy this. I'm going to have fun for an entire year. I'm just going to not worry about it. I'm not going to save. I'm not going to invest. I'm just going to have fun with my money and my wealth that's come in and live the life that I've always said I wanted to live, which is don't worry about it. If you're having fun with me, you're looked after. Okay? It's chill. You don't need to stress. You're coming to my home for a barbecue. You're going through a rough patch. You don't need to bring anything. I just want your company. Come through. And I've gotten to do that. And it's been incredible. And it's been actually very magical for me. It's made me realize, like you said, exactly who I am as a person. Because it hasn't made me a nasty person. It's made me, if anything, more of who I generally am. Now, however, I'm starting to realize that there's so much more I can do in terms of helping people. There's so much more I can do in terms of philanthropy, in terms of courses, in terms of opening schools, and all these other things that more wealth would be able to allow me to do. I could not have wrapped my head around being able to achieve that or do that a year ago.
Right.
It would have been impossible.
Mm.
You can't go from $350 a month to making $100,000 a month in the space of a couple of weeks. You will not know what to do with it.
Right.
It's taken me a year in the physicality to get used to just averaging out at about $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
In the grants in South Africa, that's a lot of money. Overseas, it's not a lot of money. Okay, in the US and Europe, that's a normal income.
Right.
It's taken me this long to, again, as I say, get used to it in my physicality, that wealth is flowing in constantly without pause. It's just always there. It's always coming in. For me to accept it, and for me to now get to the point where I go, well, what's the next level?
Right.
And the next level, by the way, is not $100,000. It's probably going to be 10 or 15.
Right.
And what can I do with that? How much impact can I create in the world around me? But then I also know, having studied this, and some of our listeners, I'm sure, will have noticed today on their timelines that there's a new movie being released on Think and Grow Rich. I just saw it on both Facebook and on Instagram. I was like, interesting that this is coming up today. But I remember from that book that they were saying it's incremental, yes, but it's not a linear progression either.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a J curve.
Yeah.
So as you continuously add more wealth to yourself, mentally, emotionally, financially, it's this avalanche that starts with a pebble. And before
Yes.
you know it, you're at this brand new level that a year ago you couldn't even begin to imagine.
And this is in the collective now too. So it brings me back to the movie The Secret. And I worked with a gentleman, a very well-known psychic. He found my book out in the world, and he said that the science of empowerment was the intellectual man's secret, right?
Yes.
Because it wasn't about visualizing and wishing and hoping. It actually has neuroscience and behavioral science,
Yep.
and it has spiritual science, and it has this elevated formula. And this is also with Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. You know, when he wrote this book, it was, well, I think in the 1930s, maybe. It was a long time ago, and the energy was very different as a collective. But he and what he tapped into was no different than what we are talking about now. And the reason why this movie is coming out now, again, is because a lot of leadership around the globe is realizing that we need to infuse this knowledge
Mm.
into the global community, which is what you and I are doing with this movement, this social impact of the balance of body, mind, consciousness elevation. It no longer works to build wealth in the same way. And yes, especially here in the States on Wall Street, and we have all of this around the world, and that will definitely stay in play. But there are mechanisms at work here that the collective hasn't quite caught up with. But now you're going to start seeing these teachings, this guidership, this leadership, these movements on a grander scale, because the elevation needs to happen now. You cannot no longer hold the frequency of non-deserving and wish for deserving. The algorithms in the universe herself cannot balance it out for us anymore. This is a self um, infused journey. You need to take the wisdom, the knowledge, the insight, the education in and apply it. Formulas are being given to you in the Shift and Co. Every word we say, we think about, how is this resonating? How
Mm.
is this affecting you? What is the causation? We are in place to shift things for you. Take advantage. Every book that's mentioned, every course, and everything that Stefan and I are now creating, the science of empowerment, the J3 equals E, the wealthy mindset, everything that we're doing. So there may be a movie coming out, but this can be your movie. All this knowledge, all this information, everything that we're going to be offering to this community is in place for a reason. This is to get you to begin to align yourself with the next layer and the next level of universal frequencies, or you will fall behind, because that's the human condition. So you either
Exactly.
hop on, follow the formula, i.e., the podcast and what we tell you, what we share. And if Stefan mentions Think and Grow Rich, it's coming out on such and such, go watch it, go listen to it. It will uptick your own vibration. And this is what we all need to do so that we experience more peace, more joy, more happiness, more abundance, so that places around the world, such as we sponsor an orphanage, and what we talk about is, we right now where we are give what we can. We provide clothing and food. We now want to create more wealth, my husband and I, so we can actually build a building, a home, so they can get off of sleeping on the ground, right? We want to be able to go to a company that can go over there and create a well so they have fresh water, so they can build a garden, and then they can have food. Do you see how this changes? But if I was not aligned with this
There we
understanding
go.
of universal connection, if I didn't feel value in what I offer, I could not match the value and then bring value to someone else. You have to experience it. And when you apply the J3 equals E, which we talked about in our podcast before, the wealth of self, and now you bring in the wealthy mindset, this isn't about throwing numbers and wealth around. This is about actually aligning with the frequency of wealth itself. And you cannot do this if you don't value yourself in your personal relationship, if you don't value yourself in your work environment. You have to connect it all together. And you don't necessarily have to know how it works. Just know that it does.
Just do it. Just do it.
Just do
So
it.
I'm going to share something in closing because, again, we've aligned so perfectly here, Laura, in terms of aligning with our higher purpose.
Yes.
Because I was using a technique that I actually learned from Gabrielle Bernstein in her book, Super Attractor. And it's very simple. You pick a short affirmation and you say it out with conviction in 4 different tones, right? So you get excited, you get confident, you get supremely calm and happy with it, and then you almost use a tone of acceptance at the end. And it's interesting how it settles into your psyche and your soul as you're doing this, literally using higher frequency emotions in a very positive way to get something to resonate down into a soul level. Now I bring this up because we have certain goals for this month, and one of them, which I'm putting out into the universe quite hugely, and we started speaking about it, but on the podcast. And please, everyone, do keep an eye out because we are going to be launching this very, very soon. We have a new course that we've put together that we are going to be launching in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that we said was we really want 20 clients to work with in a group setting and one-on-one to really help them reach that next level. So yesterday, whilst I'm doing my dishes, and which is also one of the ways that I relax, by the way. I know, a little bit odd and strange, but it really does relax me.
Wax on, wax off.
Indeed. I think it's exactly that. So I'm doing the dishes and I go, we have 20 new clients. We have 20 new clients. We have 20 new clients.
Yeah, we do.
We've got 20 new clients. But here's the interesting thing. As I'm doing this, I get this resistance. And for me personally, if I have resistance to something I'm saying, it always sits just below the solar plexus chakra and above the root, right? And it just sits there like this. It almost feels like there's a tiny little hard ball that's just sitting there, and it's not light and it's not comfortable. And it's just like, why am I pushing back against this? And in real time, I used the J3 = E formula to figure out what was going on. And it was a mild case of imposter syndrome where I'm going, well, who are we to launch this course, right? But then instantly saying that out loud, bringing it out into the light, I instantly could go, well, here's my credentials. Here's Laura's credentials. Are we top of our field? Maybe not. But we do have a lot of wisdom that most people do not have access to.
Right.
Who am I to shield the world from that?
Right.
Who am I to prevent someone else from taking advantage of what Laura and myself have managed to aggregate in our lives in terms of knowledge and wisdom? And suddenly that little ball got smaller.
Yeah.
And then I went, okay, how can I take this and because now it got to kind of neutral. So I'm like, how can I shift it to positive now? Now that I know what it is, now that I've taken accountability for it, how do I shift this into positive? And I went, well, talk about it.
Right.
Be open, be vulnerable, and go, this is my experience. And see how people start to resonate with it, because I can guarantee you someone's going to hear this at some point in the near future and go, oh, wow, I had a similar experience with a business I wanted to start, or I had some experience about a job I was offered. How can I move through that as well?
And
formula.
Yeah. And I wanted to share too. I remember, and I've had this happen quite a few times because I did not go to university. I actually got a GED. I got out of school early. I was just such a creative force. School knowledge is different than school.
Yes.
I love knowledge. And yes, the base is important. But then I hit a point and I knew for me, because everyone I knew that was going off to university wanted to party and have fun and hook up. And there were a few that were a little bit motivated. And those were my friends, like myself, very athletic, were maybe going into scholarships and knew that they had to hold a certain grade average in order to play for their prospective,
Right.
athletic abilities. And me, I was off. I was dancing. As I told you, I did a little bit of modeling, and I was just having fun, like in that kind of field of things. And
Mm.
I knew for me that college, university was just going to be party, and that I was just going to use it to extend my growing time, which most kids do, which is fabulous. For me, because I've always held this very unique mindset, even when I was a kid. I can go back to fifth grade. I wrote a beauty book and I actually gave a talk in school. And it was silly things. I'm not even going to get into it. But even my teacher was like, oh my God, she's 10 years old and she's already speaking and she's created this little book. And my parents knew that there was something different here. So
Mm.
when everyone started coming out about this imposter syndrome, I started thinking about this. And I think for me, and this is what I would say, when we are authentically connected to something that brings value into our personal life experience, there is no syndrome to be had. When we've touched upon some wisdom and some ancient teachings and some new modern science, and we've read books and we've created a file and a folder on information that matters to us, when we've applied it to our own life, when we've gone into the financial institutions and we've created, as you have, the sales end, the actual attraction and manifestation end, there is a system in place that no one could have taught us, that no degree would matter, because we authentically went through the exploration, the experimentation, and the experience firsthand. And that is our credential. Drop the mic.
Oh, perfect.
So for everyone out there in this community that you feel less qualified, then begin an exploration into that field of interest. Become passionate, become excited, read, learn, apply. That makes you an expert, because you have physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually gone through the exploration, the archaeology, right? Archaeology,
Mm.
the digging, the creating, the planting of the seeds, the sowing of the crops, whatever word, the building of a car. So many times we talk about building the plane while flying it. This to me is true mastery. This is how we become enlightened, gifting individuals. This is how we become empowered. We go through it ourselves and we impart our experiences for the people that have yet to tap in, to give them confidence that this is how you credential your own empowerment. You
Yep,
live in the mindset of an empowered individual, and then you offer that knowledge to someone else. This is how you begin your credentials.
absolutely. Perfect place for us to end off today. This has been, I think, our most powerful episode of the Wealthy Mindset,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, today's, I should say.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to sharing so much more beautiful information in the coming weeks. We have our first guests starting, I think, either next week or the week after. Just going to double check the schedules and things, which I think everybody's going to be very excited about. I know Laura and myself are definitely very excited. And yeah, I'm just so excited to keep growing this community, to keep growing the wealth of wisdom that everybody should have access to. I think it's such a beautiful journey. But on that note, as always, please do like, subscribe, and share. The link to all our social media is in the description, as well as the link to purchase the book that we were talking about today, The Science of Empowerment. Please do grab a copy. It's going to change your mindset exponentially to the point where you really do feel in control of the forces around you, specifically when it comes to having a wealthy mindset.
And if I
On
may
that-
just
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Stefan. Yes, if I just may add, again, I said this, and I think I'm going to start to say this. Get a friend, get a buddy, get a partner, or two or three. When you want to start building your wealth and you start to tap into our courses and this beautiful alchemy of this consciousness raising energy with real life application of building wealth, this is what Stefan and I have that sets us apart from others. There's this beautiful balance of really raising consciousness so that you can build wealth to gift to others. Get a small group together, get the courses going, begin to build this community along within the community, and build your own mini groups and mastermind. Reach out to us. We will make time to talk, to show up. We will do things that the average person in leadership role will not do.
Could not agree with you more. On that note, we've been Laura and Stefan. We look forward to seeing you all again next week, same time, same place. Yeah. Have a
Bye,
wonderful week further. Bye, everybody.
Wealth.